coverage without the big wireless bill.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
This is WBNW 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up, because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Todd, many people are afraid that if they transfer money to an irrevocable trust, they will be giving up control of their assets and will have to ask their trustee for permission to spend their own money. Now, is this a valid concern?
No, it's really not. And folks, when you think about irrevocable trust, please remember that there are many different kinds of irrevocable trust. There are some that require a loss of control, rigidity, inflexibility. However, the trust we're talking about when you're protecting assets from a nursing home allow the donor to remove and replace the trustee, allow the donor to have really an unbelievable amount of control over the assets that are in the trust. They can live in their house, they can manage and invest their own money, they can sell a house, they can buy a new house. When the money's invested, they can have the income come directly to them. Folks, the control you keep over your assets in an irrevocable trust is really something you must try to learn about, and that's why we're giving you away a guide today to help you understand these trusts.
Request this brand new guide from the folks at Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trusts. Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. 866-848-5699, or you can request it from LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818, 800-378-3818, 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Another week here on the Financial Exchange. It is Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you. And kicking things off, just trying to make sense of what is going to be coming this week. We've got quite a bit of economic data. Earnings season's completely done at this point, unless you're, interested in seeing what Lazy Boy has to say about the state of the recliner market in the United States, which...
Or basketball.
Gotta tell you, just not interested. I mean, other than that, this week, this is literally the earnings circuit for the entire week. Lennar, Lazy Boy, Korn Ferry International, Carnival. Could be interested in Carnival, but on the margins, it's still a $20 billion company.
Kind of interesting too.
We already know what's going on with housing.
Yeah.
I think it's not in a great spot. Kroger. Okay, tell me what's going on with grocery prices.
There's nothing there.
No, there's nothing there. Darden Restaurants. Okay, maybe I'll get a little bit of information about what's going on with consumer spending at restaurants. And CarMax.
So unless you own one of these companies, you don't really care.
There's just not much there that's going to tell you anything too important about, that we don't already know. So that's what we got on the earnings side. But a lot of meat on the economic data side of things. This morning, we got New York State Empire Manufacturing Index came in at -16 versus estimates of -5.5. So manufacturers domestically still telling you, hey, things aren't great here. We're kind of trying to sort through all this. That's been the case since April at this point. Tomorrow, retail sales come out. Expectations are for a 0.7% month-over-month decline. X-Auto's looking for a 0.1% increase. So again, kind of that whole pull forward of autos thing is expected to drop the headline number. But what do we see? X-Autos? That's kind of the big one out there. Wednesday, we have a jam-packed day. We've got building permits and housing starts at 8:30 a.m. along with a special Wednesday edition of weekly jobless claims because of the Thursday Juneteenth holiday. And then Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m., we get the Fed rate decision as well as a summary of economic projections, which I am very interested to see, might I say. And then at 2:30, Jay Powell. Any guesses to what color the tie is going to be?
Purple.
What shade of purple?
Doesn't matter.
Don't know any shades of purple. In any case...
Fuchsia. That's more pink.
That's more of a pink.
Yeah.
Shades of purple. Let's see what different shades of purple are. Okay, here we go. What's that?
I said let's not.
No, I want to see.
It's an important place to start, Tucker.
I want to see what. So
you don't want to start Monday with hard-hitting stuff, all right? We got to talk about shades of purple first.
It's fine. We can do this. This is kind of a big one, actually. Yeah. So in terms of shades of purple, mauve, always a good one.
Yeah.
Bright lilac, medium orchid, electric purple.
All right, you cannot have adjectives in describing my wife brought this up the other day. She was looking for colors that started with a certain letter.
Yeah.
And it was all like very green or like that. That doesn't count.
Well, it's not very. It's electric.
Yeah. No, not.
I mean, isn't every word describing a color basically an adjective? What do you want? An adverb?
I think the problem was, yeah. Okay, that's.
You know. You want, like, heartily green?
Like, I have an issue with deep purple.
What about cyber grape?
Yeah, problematic.
Because that's one of them. I mean, this one's just dark purple. Great, thanks. I could have... Who are the ad wizards who came up with that one? So, we've got that coming out on Wednesday, and then Friday, we've got Philly Fed Manufacturing. Nothing huge, but again, just interested to see what you got there. Again, you get into the back half of the month, there's not really a ton of meaningful economic data that you get. The heavy-hitting stuff is the first 2 weeks of every month. So this is why, like, you kind of look at everything out to July 4th and you go, well, absent, some kind of big geopolitical conflict, you're not really going to get much over the next week and a half. And so the question then turns to the Middle East, where
Giant
you say,
geopolitical conflict.
Is this going to turn into a big geopolitical conflict?
So market-wise overnight, we had oil prices spiking on a whole bunch of things, but strikes on energy plants.
Don't buy anything from the Sunday futures, though.
Right. Like, so Sunday futures popped to, what was it, $77 a barrel on West Texas crude before calming down, erasing all of those gains. But, what we saw over the weekend, I would describe as more of a continuation than an escalation.
Well, I think here's what is going to...
It's tough to escalate after assassinating pretty much all of the military leadership of Iran.
Well, and this is kind of where everyone is who actually pays attention to this stuff, is they're kind of like, what now? Where do you go from here? Because...
almost the supreme leader, apparently.
Which the U.S. has indicated very publicly, hey, like, we don't want you getting involved at that level. Mm-hmm. Take from that what you will, but ultimately the question is, okay, where does this go from now? And there are basically two paths that you can take as far as the actual military conflict. One is, hey, we just continue to see Israel trying to take out as many, targets as they can as far as missile launchers and, throwing additional bombs at underground uranium enrichment facilities and taking out, high-ranking Iranian officials, while Iran lobs a bunch of missiles back at Israel, and that's kind of the status quo. And if that is like where we end up, it's not good for the people of either country, obviously, but it doesn't really mean anything as far as markets.
True.
It doesn't do anything to markets. The place, and by the way, like if you look at where this, where I think this goes, that's probably like the 80 to 90% chance that you have is just that. The 10 to 20% chance is either A, Israel decides, okay, now beyond just striking, internal Iranian storage of different petroleum products and transportation networks within Iran, Israel decides, hey, you know what? We're going to start really going after the oil fields. And more importantly, Karg Island, which is just off the coast of Iran, just kind of off the southwest coast, which is basically where Iran exports its oil from. Hey, we're going to target that, and that becomes a thing. Iran then responds, not necessarily by... There's been a lot of talk about, like, do they close the Strait of Hormuz by doing this, that, and all they really have to do is credibly threaten it. And by credibly threaten, I mean if a single ship is targeted by Iran...
Yeah.
And they shoot something, across the bow of it, okay, like...
Traffic diverts then.
Right, you basically end up with insurers saying, we are not going to cover that area, and as such, nothing gets shipped through there. Kind of like what happened in the Red Sea over the last couple of years.
Which then escalates by someone perhaps sending a ship into the Strait of Hormuz to protect it.
The counter to this, okay, and this is where things start to get like really complicated really quickly and trying to figure out where it all goes. No one knows for sure, but it's widely estimated that the biggest buyer of Iranian oil, which all gets shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, is China. China's not really in the market to say, like, where are we going to source another couple million barrels of oil a day? They'd prefer not to do that. So there's a pretty big incentive for Iran not to go scorched earth on basically their own lifeblood by blocking the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, to be clear, who would hurt the most from a block of the Strait of Hormuz is Iran. But if you're desperate enough,
correct,
you might do it.
And this is the thing, is when you get, kind of cornered, you start to make bad, dumb decisions, and like this is where you could potentially end up. But again, I think it's unlikely, but something that you have to discuss at this point. Other things that you watch, I mentioned China. The other thing that I think bears watching in this is how Israel tries to, what specifically they try to attack next. And it's going to be all through air power and covert operations, because I kind of laughed over the weekend. And look, I'm no geopolitical expert, but I know enough to be dangerous. I laughed at the people being like, well, Israel's getting ready to send in troops for regime change. I'm like, no, let's calm down. This is like the people watching like the hurricanes hoping it's a Cat 5. Like, you shouldn't hope for that. And besides that, if you knew anything about Iran, just from a geographic perspective, it's freaking huge, first of all. It's the 14th largest country in the world by landmass. Second piece, it's basically all mountains. Iran is not desert like you think of, the Persian Gulf and, Saudi Arabia. Iran is all mountains. You can't really do anything, and Israel's not dumb enough to be like, hey, here's a bunch of ground forces going into Iran. So let's take all of those. Anyone who's like wishing for let's move on there. The piece that I think you need to watch is how long can the Iranian regime actually survive before it kind of loses what is necessary to actually operate control within the country. If you start losing internal energy resources and you have, high-level leadership continuing to be taken out on a pretty regular basis, you can see a path where if that continues, it gets to a point where you just can't actually maintain control over the country.
Yeah, you can't govern.
And I think that's what Israel is hoping for, is something along those lines. Do they get there? I don't know. And if Iran senses that this is coming, is that when they kind of spasm, and just involuntarily say, okay, like we need to torch this, that, and whatever because we're not going to make it anyways.
Let's take a quick break, but I want to stay on this for just one more moment because it all leads me back to the question, okay, economics, markets, what does this mean for Americans that are listening right now?
Yes.
Let's take a quick break. That's next here on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699 or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school. The sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline Qualification Line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we're covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and are consistently voted one of the top Caribbean vacation destinations. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, rich history, and a vibrant nightlife. Book your trip now to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. For reservations and more information, go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Mike, so last segment we were talking about the current state of play between Israel and Iran, and just talking about, how it affects kind of average, everyday people here who aren't going, people aren't going to visit the Middle East anytime soon, and, things along those lines. Number one, gas prices haven't really budged a ton yet. The expectation, and this is from Gas Buddy, is basically, hey, if you have oil prices staying in the low 70s, you're going to see gas prices moving up to somewhere in the $3.25 to $3.40 a gallon range nationally from the mid $3.12, $3.15 range that they've been in over the last couple of weeks. So I think that's something where in the next week or two, if we still have ongoing hostilities and, that's kind of where we are, that is the expectation. If you see anything happen near basically energy, not even production, but energy transportation networks leading out of the Middle East, Strait of Hormuz, things like that, that's where you start talking about oil going north of 80, but there are no signs that you're heading in that direction simply because it sure seems like Iran wouldn't want to shoot itself in the foot that way, and I think Israel does have some guardrails that are being imposed on it by the Trump administration as far as targeting, Iranian exports, simply because I do think the Trump administration is very concerned about where energy prices could go and does not want a retaliation from Iran after Israel conducts a first strike against the Karg Island export facility, just as an example.
U.S. equities are moving up pretty much universally 1%. Major indices are up over 1% across the board today. And I keep going back to the lesson that we talked about Friday, right? The lesson for the last 25 years pretty consistently has been don't bet on geopolitical tensions spilling over into economics. I guess, or at least U.S. economics.
Correct.
And that has been a trade that has paid very well over the last 25 years. What you can't know is this time different, but every time we've talked about tension in the Middle East, tension with North Korea, or pretty much anywhere else, markets might sink a little bit, but they end up rallying right out of it and turning around because those situations have not escalated to a further point.
Right. If you are a short-term trader who focuses on those markets and that's what you do and that's kind of where you make your bones, okay, they can present short-term dislocation opportunities for you. Beyond that, as far as any kind of meaningful, I'll even say intermediate-term impact, there's been nothing. And so the right move has been to fade them. Is that the case in this scenario? Most likely, yes. But you never know because we haven't seen anything quite to this scale between the two countries in quite a long time. So I think that, in terms of like direct action like this at this scale, I don't think you've ever seen anything, quite honestly. So I think if you're trying to figure out, hey, what does this mean for my daily life here in the United States? Probably have gas prices moving up a little bit over the course of the week if this continues. If it doesn't, obviously, you can see those oil prices fall right back down to where they were. And other than that, domestically, I'm not sure there's much there.
Right.
I think that's kind of how you look at it. If things escalate, obviously you can, take that for what it is, but otherwise this is kind of it. The only other piece that I think bears watching on this, and one place that I have in the back of my mind now, which is a potential source of constant pressure during anything involving geopolitics, is China and rare earths. And the Trump administration last week very publicly said, hey, we don't have anything to do with this, basically trying to distance the U.S. from Israeli action pretty, right, strongly. But it's not hard to imagine President Xi sitting in, China saying, you know what? Really don't like that Iran's getting hit like this. We're going to, start, pulling back on the rare earth exports again unless you get Israel to calm down.
Yeah, I can't say I know enough about the China-Iran relationship to say one way or another. Clearly, they buy a lot of the oil. I'm not sure how much else they see eye to eye on, but they buy a lot of their oil.
They buy a lot of the oil, and it's a buffer for them. It's the same way that Iran viewed Hezbollah and Hamas, and it's okay. Here's a buffer against Western intervention in the region.
Yep.
And by the way, basically no one else in the region particularly likes Iran.
Sure.
I know that, the Saudis and the UAE have been we condemn this and this and that. I would love to see the private communications that they're saying, because I suspect that they are, okay, fine, we'll move on. So that's kind of something that's in the back of my mind is, hey, I think China would like to have Iran there as some kind of anti-Europe, anti-U.S. buffer in the region. Again, I don't think they have strong feelings we love these guys, but I do think they prefer having a more friendly regime to them in the region. And if they feel that's threatened, do they start to say, yeah, we could push back through some economic means on this? Maybe. It's the one thing that's in the back of my mind as a potential thing to consider. Quick break here. Wall Street Watch is next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide this month titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist. Mike, one of the items on this is to address outstanding debts, and by that, I don't think we mean pay everything off, but more make sure you have a plan for different types of debt.
Yeah, there's always been that real goal for I think a lot of retirees to have no mortgage when you get to retirement, and I still see people trying to accomplish that even if they might have a sub 3% mortgage, for example, and there can be some psychological benefit to paying off that piece of debt, but where it comes down to is prioritizing, hey, I might have a car loan, I might have a home equity line of credit, and while the mortgage could be the biggest payment, it shouldn't always be prioritized.
Beyond that, I also think it is something that you need to figure out how it fits into your monthly budget and whether you can continue to spend in the fashion that you've been spending, or do you have to make changes there?
Right. A lot of people use some rules of thumb when it comes to how much income they'll need in retirement, and those can be useful, but it all has to be customized to your individual plan. And the last thing you want to do is pay a whole bunch in taxes just to be able to pay down some debt that wasn't really a priority in the first place. And so definitely addressing your debt and knowing how to do that intelligently when you approach retirement is key and important.
The guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it from Armstrong Advisory Group is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, and the guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are beginning the week well into positive territory as traders continue to monitor the fourth straight day of attacks between Israel and Iran, leading to volatility in the energy sector. Investors are also readying for a Fed meeting this week with a decision on interest rates and commentary from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell Wednesday afternoon. Right now, the Dow is up by 1.2%, just below 500 points higher. S&P 500 is also up by 1.2% or 73 points, and the NASDAQ is up over 1.5% now, or 306 points. Russell 2000 is up 1.3% or 28 points higher. 10-year Treasury yield down by 1 basis point, now at 4.40%. And crude oil retreating today, 3.5% lower, trading just above $70 a barrel. Shares in U.S. Steel jumping by 5% following President Trump's executive order issued on Friday approving its merger with Japan's Nippon Steel. Furthermore, both companies signed an agreement with the Trump administration to resolve national security issues. Meanwhile, an activist investor has built a stake in lingerie retailer Victoria's Secret with plans to push the company to refresh its board and refocus on its core bra business. Victoria's Secret shares are up by 3%. After Bloomberg reported late Friday that President Trump pushed the FCC to resolve a spectrum dispute, EchoStar's stock is soaring by 48%. The company had previously threatened to file for bankruptcy protection. And Roku shares up by over 10% after the streaming platform announced an exclusive partnership with Amazon that gives advertisers access to what the two call the largest authenticated footprint in connected TV. The agreement enables advertisers to reach roughly 80 million U.S. households through the Amazon platform. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch.
Mike, also just one last final update on the Israel-Iran situation. The Wall Street Journal has a Wall Street Journal exclusive. It's titled, "A Battered Iran Signals It Wants to De-Escalate Hostilities with Israel and Negotiate." Subheader, messages passed by Tehran through intermediaries seek a return to talks if the U.S. stays out of the fight. And so we'll see where this goes. Again, I think you kind of just look at the overall situation right now and you say, look, there's not... Everyone looking at this over the weekend says, where does this go from here? And it's basically, you kind of have to either de-escalate the next week or things start to get pretty gnarly. And more likely than not is some kind of de-escalation, but we'll just have to see where things go.
What's the incentive for Israel to de-escalate here? I mean, not exactly a big threat from Iran at the moment. I mean, I know there's a few. I don't mean to minimize the deaths. I don't mean to minimize the attacks over Tel Aviv. Like, these are serious things, but I don't see what incentive Israel really has other than a pressure campaign from the U.S. and other countries.
And I think that's the only thing, because if you are the Israeli government, you're sitting there saying, okay, we've probably damaged, some of Iran's nuclear facilities. There's obviously a ton that are, not a ton, but the heavy duty stuff is buried under a mountain that Israeli jets cannot penetrate just because they're not big enough to carry the ordnance that would be required to do so. And if you Israel would not want to grant Iran any kind of meaningful pause because it gives them the opportunity to then stage a nuclear breakout where they then have a nuclear weapon, which would obviously be something that could be catastrophic to Israel in the event that Iran is able to get it. And then, if they ever decided to launch it in a defensive posture, you wouldn't be able to have the same playing field as you do now. So I don't know what again, this is something where it's the exact path it's going to follow over the next week. There's a lot of places where things can go wrong, but you look at it and you say, okay, the most likely thing is some kind of de-escalation, but you can absolutely see a path where Israel says, no, we're just going to continue to go at this, and you don't know what the Iranian regime does at that point, then,
Sure.
or how long they last even.
Yep.
You just don't know. Let's talk a little bit about the Fed, because Fed meeting is on Wednesday. It kind of snuck up on everyone who has been focused on trade and earnings and now geopolitics. And hey, guess what? Jay Powell's going to be giving a press conference at 2:30 on Wednesday. And you got a piece in Bloomberg. It's titled "The Fed on Hold Leaves Wall Street Asking What It Will Take to Cut Interest Rates." And quite honestly, it's going to be a combination of two things in order for the Fed to cut interest rates. You have to see further continued weakening of the labor market over the next month or two. And you need to see a couple more inflation reports that are still pretty tame. If they get that, they're going, or if the magnitude of the labor market, downward move is significant, the Fed is going to start cutting. I mentioned multiple times in the last week or so, if there wasn't this concern about, hey, what could happen from an inflationary perspective in the next few months, the Fed's probably cutting later this week. But they realistically can't, just because that overhang is still there.
The stuff that we've seen so far in the labor market, to your point, is not enough, right? The jobless claims have been a relatively significant uptick, but
It's getting close.
Without that uptick in unemployment, the unemployment rate, I don't think you can really make a move here, because there are other questions about labor force pressure other than just how many people are filing for unemployment, right? If you are having this significant move on immigration that is tightening the labor force to some unknown degree, I do think that's happening, right? You talk to people. There are people here that work that are not leaving their homes right now and going to jobs, even if they are still in the country illegally. If you have that, plus this continued pressure from retiring baby boomers, there's a real question as to what that actually does to the labor force that the Fed, I don't think, has perfect surveys or answers to. And so I don't know that they will wait longer than they normally would, but I think they'd be justified in waiting longer than they normally would if you're showing weakness on the labor market.
And the Fed still doesn't know exactly where tariffs are going to be.
Sure.
A month or two from now. You got that July 9th deadline that's coming up. The Trump administration signaling, hey, we're going to send the letters out to countries telling them what their new effective tariff rate is. And the Fed doesn't know exactly what's going to come out of that.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you're the Fed right now and you have these lingering questions about, hey, what's going to happen with inflation over the next few months, you kind of can't start cutting unless there's a significant deterioration in the labor market first, which the problem is then, and again, I'm not saying this is, no, I am saying this is bad. The problem then is the Fed is basically reduced to, hey, we can't start cutting until there's a recession.
Right.
Which is really problematic.
I mean, I'm not saying we will go here because it seems unlikely, but imagine for a moment what we end up experiencing is, higher white-collar unemployment at the same time that farmers, construction crews, and hotels are in desperate need of labor. Like that's kind of a scenario that you could envision playing out here over the next few months. And I'll tell you, one of those is inflationary, much more than a tight labor market on the other side would be. If you have a shortage of labor in areas like farming and construction, that seems a fair bit more inflationary to me than a low unemployment rate for college grads with a degree.
Yes and no, because what you let's take the construction side of things.
Yep.
Yes, it's inflationary in that those companies then are going to pay more in order to get the workers they need to get the work done.
Yep.
But there's also a limited supply of those. Like, Mike, if let's say that you lost your job today. And you walk over to Home Depot and you're like, hey, anyone need, a nice able-bodied, millennial to go? And they'd look at you, they'd be like,
can't reach the second shelf.
Right, yeah. Right. Good luck with the drywall. We don't have ladders tall enough for you, Mike. But you would not be someone that they'd be like, yeah, come work with us for the next 6 months.
Completely unskilled labor.
So you can't get there. Likewise, you're not even going to apply for a job farming.
Right.
You're not.
No, that's my point. Right. Is there? It's not some mismatch in supply.
But then the work just doesn't get done.
Yeah.
If that company can't hire the people,
right,
the work just stops. And how much of a demand suck is that on the U.S. economy? And so this is why
it's just complicated. Yeah.
I almost get to, man, if the labor market stuff, you still need a few more weeks or even another month or so of it. But if we get to the point, I'll tell you what my what my lines in the sand are. And I say lines in the sand, not red lines, because you can't erase a red line, but you can push the sand back and forth if I change my mind later. If you see above 270,000 weekly jobless claims, new initial ones, or if continuing claims go above 2 million, Fed's got to cut. Because that is signaling that there's something different happening in labor this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're there yet, but it's stuff that's within reach in the next month or so if things go badly on that front.
I think you also have to trust data from the business survey right now more than the household survey.
I don't have strong insights. I don't have any strong thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but if I'm looking at that unemployment rate coming from the household survey, I am more worried about response rates there than I am on the business side, given the immigration crackdown.
Let's take a quick break here. When we return, we've got the G7 summit kicking off. I think it is... Is it tomorrow or is it Wednesday? It's sometime in the next couple of days. Maybe it's Thursday even. But we got the G7 summit kicking off this week. We'll talk about what it could mean from a trade perspective after this.
G7!
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so be sure you're prepared, or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection, and while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit you and your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now and asking for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide right now by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Preparing for retirement is a time-consuming and challenging process. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're at the point where you can see retirement approaching, now is the time to make sure your plan covers all the bases. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it discusses a variety of important topics as you make decisions for later life. Everything from reviewing your income sources so that you have a full understanding of how much money you'll need in retirement, to addressing any outstanding debt, which may lessen your overall financial burden. Planning for retirement takes a great deal of time and effort, and this new guide is designed to offer you the guidance you may need. Call us at 800-393-4001 and request your free guide today. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Piece in the Wall Street Journal. It touches on something that we have covered a few times, but it's something that I always come back to, and I got to tell you, it's
a problem and it's worsening.
It's a problem. It's worsening, and it's bad.
So I want to talk first about 2001. According to Gallup, in 2001, during the George W. Bush presidency, the optimism gap between Republicans and Democrats when it came to the stock market stood at 13 points. According to the same poll this spring, where did we land, Chuck?
47 points.
Wow.
So here's the thing. I'm a big believer in one of the great things about the United States of America is that we can all have our own opinions. I'm also a big believer that those opinions don't have to be validated because they're not always right. And one of the ones that is not always right most often is thinking that because your guy either won or lost the presidential election, that markets are going to do something.
It's damning, though, because you can oftentimes be right for short periods of time. I'm going to bring up two conversations that I had around November of last year with two clients of mine that have very different political views on things, let's just say. One of them decided that they wanted to get far more aggressive with their investment portfolio. One of them wanted to get more conservative. Depending on how long you waited, both of them ended up being right for different periods of time.
Yes. And so I think ultimately what I come back to is if you are making investment decisions because of... It's not anything other than fundamentals, because let's be honest, fundamentals don't drive the market most of the time. But if you are making investment decision, quite honestly, just because of either Team Red or Team Blue, you're probably not making great investment decisions. And what I mean by this is not that the person who is in office, either in the presidency or in the House or Senate, doesn't have an influence on what policy is going to be, but much more that it's often, even if you're completely right about what you think that policy is going to be, you might be completely wrong about how the market interprets it. And there are people that get paid an awful lot of money to sit in front of screens all day, every day, analyzing this stuff, and they're probably better at it than you.
Quite possibly. I think taking emotions out of the investing is one of the key reasons that I think people work with professional investment advisors, right? I mean, it's not always about, finding that next company that's going to revolutionize the world, picking the next, giant tech company that's just a baby right now. It's, hey, when things get really important, when I am on the verge of retiring or when I'm starting my new family and I am suddenly a lot more apprehensive about what my financial future looks like, will I have the discipline to check the emotions at the door and not allow them to influence me in my decision-making process regarding my investment portfolio? If you are finding yourself even thinking about those stressors and thinking about how it could affect your decision-making process, great reason to at least talk to somebody in this business and understand how it all works. If you have questions along those lines, you're nervous about where the markets could go, and you're I'm not going to say guilty of it, but know that you could allow that stuff to seep in the future, give the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group a ring. The number's 800-393-4001. We'll provide you with a free consultation where we can sit down, understand what you're doing today and point you in the right direction. The number again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
And one other thing on this, I want to just expand on it. If because this is just for investing in general, if you can't sit down with someone and in 30 seconds explain to them what your edge is in whatever it is that you're doing and have them go, then you don't have an edge.
Agreed.
You don't.
Yep.
So if you can't think about it, and the edge has to be something more than just, well, the election happened. Okay, everyone saw that. Like, there's no edge. We all know that. And edges don't have to be complicated, by the way. I have a friend whose edge is literally, I want to look for the dumbest companies out there and, like, hope that someone hypes them. And he does it in a way that works for him. I have others who, study, metals markets and this. There's no one way to, I don't like to skin cats, so there's no one way to, peel an orange. There's a few.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you got to be able to explain what your edge is and have people go, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about this G7 summit that is happening.
G7!
Thank you, Chris. And so it's actually kicking off today. And again, I think we just need to have an openness to, hey, maybe we get some improvement on some trade stuff, particularly, with, close neighbors, Mexico and Canada. Maybe there's some stuff that comes later in this week or, sometime next week and this kickstarts things. I think oftentimes just when you get people in the room together, that can happen.
Agreed.
And I think that's possible. I think it's also very much possible that we get to next week and we're like, okay, like nothing's really happened on this at all. And we're kind of at the same place we've been in for the last couple months now, waiting for July 9th.
That's kind of where I am on this.
I think that's the baseline.
Ultimately, right now, the U.S. is kind of negotiating with an empty gun. There's challenges to their tariffs. And so if you can get a real sweetheart deal from the United States, you might be willing to really make some progress. Otherwise, I think it's a delay game.
Let's take a quick break here. Still a bunch to come on the financial exchange, including we'll talk about what we're seeing from price increases related to tariffs and an update on the real estate market.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams, your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick tip of the day. And today, we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Now, Todd, it takes 5 years to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care. If you aren't sure you or your spouse will make the 5 years before going into a nursing home, should you even bother to do your estate planning?
The answer is absolutely yes, you should bother. And here's why, folks. There's people who maybe don't even start their planning until they're 80. It doesn't mean just because you're 80, you don't try, you don't plan, right? 85, you plan. You don't know whether you're going to get sick or not get sick. But by the same token, when you're 65 and you're doing your planning, you also might not make it past the 5 years. So just because you might not make it past the 5 years is not a reason to get this clock started. For example, lots of times when we put assets in the trust, we leave lots of assets outside the trust, especially IRA assets. So let's say you made it 3 years, but you had $200,000 in an IRA outside the trust. If I got $1 million worth of assets in the trust, I'm happy to spend $200,000 of my IRA to get past the remaining 2 years to get me protected from the nursing home with the $1 million that went in there. So getting the clock started is always better than not having the clock started.
Cushing and Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. Request this brand new guide called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trust. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you. We got markets in recovery mode as we kick off the week here. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 429 points. The S&P 500's up 65. And the NASDAQ is up 297, so about a 1 to 1.5% bump in stocks taking place, pretty much reversing the losses that we saw on Friday. So, yay markets, I guess, is the news there. We've got the 10-year U.S. Treasury pretty much flat at 4.42% right now. Oil, West Texas Intermediate, now down 4% or $2.93 a barrel to $70.05. This on the back of a Wall Street Journal report that Iran has quietly been asking for negotiations to resume and a ceasefire despite public proclamations to the contrary. So we'll have to see where that goes, but it does feel like we're kind of coming to a head where the next few days are going to be kind of important to see where this evolves to as far as the next phase of this conflict here. We've got gold today down $36.30 an ounce to $34.16 and that is the big stuff moving markets today. Reminder, pretty busy week for economic data. We get retail sales data coming out tomorrow. Wednesday, we've got building permits and housing starts along with a Fed rate decision. And then on Friday, there's not too much on Friday. But tomorrow and Wednesday, going to be pretty busy with some stuff that is going to give us some information about what's going on in the U.S. economy. From the Wall Street Journal, the fog of trade war is causing confusion about price increases. The subheader gives you a little bit more information about what they're talking about. Americans are trying to size up whether tariffs are really behind certain price hikes. And I got to tell you, I had one reaction when I was reading this piece, which is, who cares why the prices are increasing?
Right. Okay, I thought that's where you're going.
Does anyone ever look, do you ever walk through the grocery store and you're like, the avocados are high, but there was, a locust infestation, so I'm going to pay for the avocado. No, it's just like, man, the eggs, too expensive. We're not doing that this week.
I suppose if you want to take an unlikely view in my point, but I think mainly it's because they want to assign blame. So I'll start there. Is people are looking for a place to assign blame, journalists especially looking for places to assign blame, and if prices go up, you can blame it on tariffs. I think if you're going to take the logical approach, you might say, oh, yeah, if tariffs are going to actually increase costs, then they might go up further in the future. And so do I want to time this purchase in some way? Am I better off delaying it because I think tariffs will go back down? Do I think I need to pull it ahead because once they start paying the tariffs on these imported remote control cars that I'm getting from China, then eventually the prices are going to go up because the buyer is actually paying those tariffs.
But no one understands it, actually. That's the thing.
That's my point as to why.
We've got these cartoons in our head of how they work, and it's not how they actually work.
That's, in my mind, why none of this. That's the least likely scenario. I think largely it's people are looking for evidence that tariffs are hurting the economy so that they can
say that they're hurting the economy.
Tweet about it.
And so we're going to see over the next few months what the impact is. We've noted that, look, based on the imposition dates in early April, the April data was not going to show anything from a tariff perspective. The May data started to in some areas, but it's really going to be June, July, and August where you start to see it actually coming through in the data. And I'm going to actually be completely honest here. I don't know exactly what to expect in terms of, exactly where the timing's going to be and how the price changes move through the system. And how severe,
yeah.
Like, I'm keeping an open mind to how this could go. And the big reason for that is there are some signs of weakness in the labor market. And if that is borne out, hey, if companies try to push through price hikes and they can't because demand is weakening, then you've got this tug of war that goes on. If the labor market cracks resolve themselves as just some residual seasonal weakness, and those go away, and you still have wage growth clipping along close to 4% annually, then you kind of look at it and you go, well, these tariffs have to be felt somewhere. Here's the one thing I know for certain: we're not going to get to the end of the year and just go, well, corporate margins are still fine, prices didn't go up, and unemployment didn't change. Like, we're not going to see no impact anywhere. It has to show up somewhere in the data. You can't.
Although it could show up in foreign data.
Either way, it's still going to. It's like we're going. Okay, fine. Like, it shows up, and corporate profits overseas go down, and there's a bunch of layoffs in. It's going to show up there. It's going to spill over to the U.S. in some way, shape, or form. Sure. So we're going to get to the end of the year, and it's going to show up somewhere. There are a bunch of different ways that it can show up. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to...
And again, this is all with all else equal, right? I mean, how does this weigh on corporate profits when combined with the tax changes that are likely to go through later this summer?
Which we still don't even have final versions of.
Plus maybe an interest rate cut. Like, there's so many competing factors here that it's very difficult to know, what the ultimate effect is. And there's not even certainty around whether or not the tariffs will stay in place.
There's not even certainty around whether or not the tariffs are legal.
Right.
I mean, it's... Again.
An economy where tariffs are in place and there's not yet a finalized tax bill and interest rates are at, where are we in the Fed funds rate? 4.25 to 4.5?
4 to 4.25, I think. Maybe it's 4.25 to 4.5.
That economy looks dramatically different from an economy that gets tax cuts and is forced to reimburse a bunch of companies billions of dollars in tariff revenue. Right? I mean, those two things look very, very different to me.
Yeah, it's...
I'm not saying that one's more likely than the other, but they look very different.
There's a plausible path to, at the end of this year, United States tariff rates being not meaningfully different from where they were at the end of last year.
Yep.
There's a path at the end of this year where they are still higher than what they are now.
Yep.
There's a path where they're the exact same as they are now. I have no idea which one we're going to end up with and for what reasons.
Right.
Like, it's the next 6 months. The two things I can say conclusively about the U.S. economy. The tariff impact's going to show up somewhere. I don't know where, but it's going to show up somewhere. And the U.S. economy is going to slow in the second half of the year, but I don't know if it's going to slow enough to have, even an uptick in unemployment or a recession or anything meaningful. It might just be, we went from, 2.5% growth in, the first half of the year down to 1.5%. And does the average American feel that? Probably in some areas, but not everywhere. So I think let's not try to be first all the time and say, like, oh, it's going to be like.
That's what gets you printed, Chuck.
I don't want to be printed. We don't chase views here. We don't chase like the TikTok hype cycle. We're going to just kind of go with it. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Joanna Stavins. She is an economist and policy advisor to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's research department, and she joins us right after this.
The Financial Exchange has gone national. Hear the show daily on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news, what's happening on Wall Street, and the president's economic agenda. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Preparing for retirement is a time-consuming and challenging process. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're at the point where you can see retirement approaching, now is the time to make sure your plan covers all the bases. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it discusses a variety of important topics as you make decisions for later life. Everything from reviewing your income sources so that you have a full understanding of how much money you'll need in retirement, to addressing any outstanding debt, which may lessen your overall financial burden. Planning for retirement takes a great deal of time and effort, and this new guide is designed to offer you the guidance you may need. Call us at 800-393-4001 and request your free guide today. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so be sure you're prepared, or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection, and while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit you and your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now and asking for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide right now by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Subscribe to our page and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As promised, joining us now on the line is Ioana Stavins from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. She is an economist and policy advisor in their research department. Ioana, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
You've got a study out talking about credit card accounts that are recently opened and the relative risks of them becoming delinquent and going into default. Can you talk a little bit about that study and what we've seen in the last several years in that area?
Sure. So I looked at several years of credit card delinquency, which is those are credit card accounts. So credit card accounts, as we all know, are extremely common. Almost everyone in the U.S. has at least one. And about half of the consumers pay their credit card balances regularly on time, and roughly half, slightly fewer than half, of U.S. consumers revolve. It's called revolve, which means they don't pay their balances in full. But still, they at least keep up with their minimum balances or more. The problem is, or the sort of the focus of my study is delinquency. So those are consumers who don't even pay the minimum. So luckily, it's a relatively small fraction of credit card holders in the U.S. And that fraction has been fairly steady for several years prior to the COVID pandemic. And then early during the pandemic, two things sort of coincided. One is that there are fewer opportunities to spend. We're all, stuck at home without any travel. And the second thing is that there were pandemic transfers, which helped consumers, especially lower income consumers, pay off their existing credit card debt. So the silver lining of sort of this early COVID period was the credit card situation improved in the US, and many people paid off their balances. Credit card delinquencies went down. But, all good things must come to an end, and so did the drop in credit card delinquencies. It started roughly in mid-2021. Credit card delinquencies started climbing again. And looking at the sort of long-term pattern, they basically increased to more or less their pre-pandemic level and have been leveling off. So the good news is that they did not rise beyond their pre-pandemic level. They're basically where they used to be.
Ioana, when you look at kind of what this tells us about the overall health of credit card borrowers, is it something where you say, hey, they're basically, in that same place that they were at before the pandemic, or are there signs that despite that delinquency rate, are things still different under the surface there?
Well, some things are different. So I think on surface, things are similar. Like I said, the overall delinquencies rates are similar. The problem with credit card delinquencies and consumers who can become delinquent, it's really the lower credit score consumers. So it's not necessarily the bottom income consumers, although it is somewhat correlated with income. But consumers who have low credit scores are the ones who are most likely to get in trouble. Obviously, it works both ways. Credit scores are affected by their debt and delinquencies. But the issue is that once your credit score drops, it's very hard to sort of dig yourself up, and it's very hard to get any further credit. And unfortunately, what I found in my research is that consumers with the low credit scores are also, so they're most likely to default on their credit card accounts. They're also more likely to borrow on buy now, pay later, for example, which is sort of an alternative to credit cards. So they're searching for other types of credit, and they're also, likely to default on other debts. So it's really the issue of credit scores. And one of particular focus of this recent study was that I was looking at whether banks lowered their lending standards. So in other words, I was looking at the threshold of credit score that was required to get credit card. And it seemed like banks did loosen their standards, so they were lending or giving credit card loans to consumers with lower credit scores, and that was potentially troubling because, like I said, the bottom credit score consumers are the ones who are most likely to default on their credit card debt. But what I found more recently in 2024, so my data goes in this study goes through the end of 24, and I have been tracking it since then as well, is that banks basically went back to their practices that they applied before the COVID pandemic. So they did loosen their lending standards temporarily, but it seems that they're back to where they were. So the good news is that banks' lending standards have become slightly more stringent again, so they are a little more cautious. And so as a result of that, the delinquency rates are, again, back where they used to be before COVID.
You mentioned that, once someone gets into that stage of, delinquency, it becomes very hard for them to dig themselves out of the problem they've gotten into. How does this typically resolve itself in past economic cycles? Is it something where we see, a wave of bankruptcies to discharge that debt eventually? What kind of is the next step as far as what we usually see?
Well, so it varies. It varies across many different factors. In particular, it varies across credit card issuers. But in general, what banks do, the banks that issue credit cards, at some point they'll charge those loans off. So for those consumers, and again, as I said, it's a luckily very small fraction of cardholders that don't pay even their minimum balances. At some point, those accounts are going to be closed, and the debt is going to be charged off, and banks essentially write it off as losses. For those individuals, some of them will declare bankruptcy, but not necessarily. They might, have savings. They might have other sources of income. So it really varies across individuals. But from banks' perspective, it sometimes ends up being a loss.
So this is obviously something that can be really challenging for an individual to deal with. When we talk about the impact on the broader economy, is this something that historically has an impact on the U.S. economy, or does it not for any particular reason?
Sure, of course it does. So, economists track all kinds of consumer debt. Credit card debt is a chunk of it. But if you look at the sort of cross-section of, what type of consumer debt there are, mortgages and housing debt really swallows everything else. So on a sort of global scale, mortgage debt is more substantial than credit. I'm not saying credit cards are not important. And in fact, consumers, lower income and lower credit card consumers are less likely to have mortgages, obviously. So they're more likely to be renters. And so for those consumers, for sure, credit cards tends to be, sort of a lifeline and often the only source of potential credit. But on a global scale, if you look at the economy at large, credit card is a substantial, but still just a fraction of overall consumer debt. We have auto loans, we have educational loans, so there are other factors that come into play.
Ioana, we really appreciate you joining us today, and thank you so much for sharing the results of your study with us. We look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you for inviting me again.
That is Ioana Stavins. She's an economist and policy advisor in the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's research department, and talking about her study looking at the rise in delinquencies that we've seen in credit card loans in the last couple of years. Taking a look at markets as we head towards the bottom of the hour, we still remain broadly positive throughout U.S. equity markets, with the Dow now up 394 points. The S&P is up 63 and the NASDAQ up 299, so again, in U.S. equity markets, pretty much retracing most, if not all, of the losses from Friday's market session. In the bond market right now, 10-year Treasury still not really doing much of anything. It's holding steady at 4.42%, and we've got oil now off about 3.7%, down $2.69 a barrel to $70.29 on West Texas Intermediate, with gold also down about $31 per ounce to $34.21 This on a report from the Wall Street Journal that the Iranian government is quietly asking for a ceasefire and for negotiations regarding their nuclear program to resume, despite public statements to the contrary. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got trivia, and then we're talking real estate after this.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but irrevocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist. One of the items on that list, reviewing your investment portfolio. And Mike, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is making no changes to their investment portfolio right up until the minute they retire and then making a drastic shift.
Yeah, I mean, look, that drastic shift can sometimes be called for, but only if the preparation hasn't been happening over the years. And that's where having a checklist in place and really addressing these things well ahead of retirement is the most comprehensive strategy and probably the best planned strategy that you can have out there.
And when we talk about an asset allocation in retirement, it's not just, hey, I'm X years old, I need to be situated in a certain fashion. It's much more taking into account your income needs over different time horizons, any other big spending items that you might have, and obviously risk tolerance and time horizon for retirement. Big difference between retiring at 60 and retiring at 70.
Well, and the tools can change too, right? Even if you were in a tool that made you automatically more defensive as you got closer to retirement, like many 401ks do, it might not be the best distribution tool for you when you're actually ready to pull that trigger, stop working, and then ultimately begin taking withdrawals out of that 401k. And so really important to review this piece by piece.
Our guide this month is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it from Armstrong Advisory Group is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets beginning the week in positive territory as traders continue to monitor the attacks between Israel and Iran, leading to volatility in the energy sector. However, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Iran has been urgently signaling that it seeks an end to hostilities and resumption of talks over its nuclear programs. Right now, the Dow up by 0.9% or 385 points. S&P 500 is up just over 1% higher, and the NASDAQ is up 1.5%. Russell 2000 is up 1.3%. 10-year Treasury yield mostly flat today at 4.42%, and crude oil pulling back over 3.5%, trading at $70.36 a barrel. U.S. Steel jumping by 5% following President Trump's executive order issued on Friday approving its merger with Japan's Nippon Steel. Furthermore, both companies signed an agreement with the Trump administration to resolve national security issues. Meanwhile, an activist investor has built a stake in lingerie retailer Victoria's Secret with plans to push the company to refresh its board and refocus on its core bra business. Victoria's Secret is up by 2%. And Roku shares jumping by nearly 8% after the streaming platform announced an exclusive partnership with Amazon that gives advertisers access to what the two companies called the largest authenticated footprint in connected TV. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch. Time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange. And on this date in 1980, the Blues Brothers movie was released in theaters. The movie would become the second biggest movie that was adapted from an SNL sketch, grossing $115 million at the global box office. Trivia question today: which movie is the highest grossing film based on an SNL sketch? Once again, which movie is the highest grossing film based on an SNL sketch? Be the second person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the second correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
New real estate math. 500,000 more sellers than buyers. That's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. I was told there would be no math, but this is another one that kind of, I look at the headline and I'm like,
You're not doing the story justice.
You're not telling the full story, because ultimately, I'm sure there are plenty of buyers for homes. They're like, talk to people in the United States. I'm willing to bet most of them are not like, man, I got too many homes I'm looking to sell. Most of them are like, no, I can't get into this housing market because it's too expensive, which means the full headline should be 500,000 more sellers than buyers at current prices. And even that, I'm not entirely sure if it's accurate.
Yeah. So U.S. home prices in May were up another 1.4% from a year earlier. So you can't sit here and tell me.
Yes, but month-over-month numbers were falling.
I got it. But we are still in a position of housing market strength at this point. When I look at the nation, look at the nation as a whole,
this should be fun.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I mean, I just don't think you can call it weakness when you are still seeing year-over-year price gains.
So here's the case that I will make to you.
Yep.
And again, this is for an audience of one, so I'm going to tailor it specifically to, what I know Mike likes to hear. When you look at the largest housing markets in the country,
yep.
Florida, Texas, California, those are your three biggest ones in the country.
Yep.
Inventory in Texas is now up 35% year over year. Inventory in Florida is up 28%. California is actually, this is relative to 2018 and 19. So this is over 6 years.
Okay.
Inventory in Texas is 33% above pre-pandemic peaks. Inventory in Florida, 28% above pre-pandemic peaks. California, down 5%. So California is the only one where you can look at there and say, okay, there's less inventory. The 1 year inventory change, and this is what matters for the market today, really.
Yep.
California inventory is up 51% year over year. It is the second fastest growing state for inventory in the last year and showing signs of accelerating. And so what I get to is, look, those three states, which are the three most populous states in the country, their inventory levels are growing, and in the case of California, still growing very rapidly. Even Florida and Texas still up over 30% year over year and continuing basically to increase at the same clip. And so I think the point that I'll make is a lot of that pricing growth is from like the second half of last year. And if you look more recently at what the spring market is telling us, it's flashing all kinds of warning signs on housing right now, except
in the Northeast.
In the Northeast, where our show is based out of.
Yeah. There's a few other states too, but mainly it's Northeast. Illinois has a very low inventory market. That's a big state as well. Pennsylvania is Northeast too. Yeah. Wisconsin, I guess, is the only other one that I can look at that's even a reasonably sized state that is still struggling with inventory levels. The rest of it, yeah, it's Northeast is a very, very tight market. Everywhere else is weakening quickly.
So this is another reason why I am kind of
looking to buy a home in Florida in 2025.
No. No. This is one reason why I am sympathetic to the idea of, hey, like the Fed needs to, move sooner rather than later. But here's the other question that I have on this. It's unclear, when we talk about the Fed cutting interest rates, the Federal Reserve does not cut mortgage rates. They do not control mortgage rates. The Federal Reserve cuts a short overnight rate, and basically what can happen from there is people extrapolate Fed policy and other things, and that can affect the long end where, mortgage rates are priced. There is no 1-to-1 or, 2-to-1 ratio of, hey, if the Fed cuts X, here's how much the 10-year moves down. It varies based on the specific circumstances that are going on in the world at the time. We've seen instances where the Fed has gone through big cutting cycles and the 10-year Treasury falls 2 or 3%, which would mean at current rates, okay, mortgages go down into the 4s. We've also seen cycles where the Fed cuts, a few percent and the 10-year Treasury moves down 0.75%, which would mean, okay, you get to like 6.25%, and that helps. But you're not getting rates in the 5s, 4s, let alone, 3s and 2s. So I think from my perspective on this, it's something where housing's got problems. I'm not sure even the Fed cutting fixes them, but it probably doesn't hurt them.
Yeah. Fair.
Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so make sure you're prepared, or you could make some costly mistakes that can affect your overall plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can help devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection. And while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trust. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit you and your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now and asking for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
For the last full year that we have data for, which is 2023, U.S. median household income clocked in at just over $80,000 a year. But according to a study that was conducted by Smart Asset that was released a couple weeks ago, in order for a family of 4 to live comfortably in Mississippi, which is the nation's most affordable state, you would have to make $186,618 per year in order to do so. So a couple things on this. The first is that this talks about the cost of housing as if you are buying a house today.
Yep.
So if you bought a home 10 years ago, obviously that has drastic implications for what this would mean because your cost of housing has not necessarily changed. If you have a 30-year mortgage and it's still at 3.5% or 4%, that cost is consistent. Obviously your taxes and insurance costs change. But
it's an interesting study in how much it would cost to move to any one state.
Yes, this I think is where it is. The most expensive state in the country by this metric is Massachusetts, where a family of 4 needs more than $300,000 a year to meet the threshold of living comfortably. Now, when we talk about living comfortably, let's define what this is. 50% of income goes to necessary costs, 30% to discretionary wants, and 20% to either debt payments and or saving. Debt not being, mortgage, that would be a necessary payment. But this is talking about saving 20% of income. So obviously that bumps this number up as well. But when you talk about, the goals that most people talk about from a savings perspective, savings rates between 10 and 20% are typically that long-term goal.
Yep.
And so I don't think these numbers are crazy from that perspective, but it does get at, hey, if half the population is making, less than half of what this study says you need to make in order to live comfortably, are we really surprised that people are saying they're really unhappy with how the economy is today?
No. It's also why people are saying, dear God, it costs so much to live here in Massachusetts. I just look at this study comparing, I've hinted to some family of mine that lives in Indiana, like, hey, maybe you're moving, east to Massachusetts at some point. And the differential there, you need $220,000 as a family of 4 to live there, $300,000 to move to Mass. Most people, when they are, changing jobs and moving to a new region,
don't look for a 40% increase in their cost of living.
No, and don't look, and can't expect a 40% increase in their wages either. I don't think most people working in Indiana, if they said, oh yeah, I'm going to take the same job in Massachusetts, are going to see a 40% wage increase.
So again, just some interesting data to chew on here. And with that, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll do some stack roulette.
The Financial Exchange is now available across the country and around the world on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Stay informed about Wall Street trends, economic policy, and breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Planning for retirement is much like cramming for a final exam, and no stone should be left unturned before you're ready to take that step. Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we help folks just like you plan for retirement every day. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Planning Checklist, and in it, we'll remind you of the various issues that may be most important to your planning process. Let's start with the date you choose to retire. That'll depend on a variety of factors, including your income and your health. You may also want to modify your investment portfolio to create ways to maintain the wealth you've already earned. And you'll also want to make sure that you're prepared for major unexpected expenses. Life moves quickly, and you'll need to know if you can cover that cost. Call us today at 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts, and now's the perfect time to register for this year's 5K at Castle Island by visiting dav5k.boston. The event will sell out again, so if you're interested in participating, now's the time to reserve your spot. Come out and help support our great American heroes by joining us for the DAV 5K. Visit dav5k.boston to register or to make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston. Trivia question today was, which movie is the highest grossing film based on an SNL sketch? That would be Wayne's World. And our trivia winner today was Jim from Tingsboro, Mass, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Jim. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, what do you got for Stack Roulette?
Hard-hitting news from the state of Maine. They're out with new license plates, and you have the option of selecting either the standard old Maine license plate or a new license plate with a tree and a star on them. And apparently a bunch of people are saying that the top of the tree, bears resemblance to a middle finger. That new tree, the new license plate is outselling the old one by a ratio of 10-1. So I'll point it out to you, Chuck, because I did not see it at first. But this little tip of the tree right here is alleged to be a middle finger. And the artist, of course, is denying this fact, saying it's just, people seeing things that they're not intended in any way, shape, or form. But it is kind of a Mainer type of attitude thing that I do like to see. So go get your new Maine license plate if you're eligible, I guess.
Mainers have an attitude of giving people the finger? I don't think so.
No.
I don't know.
I think that's more Massachusetts where we're from.
Over the last few years of, New Yorkers and Massachusetts folks invading their space. I think there's a bit of a middle finger to be given to those other state residents.
No, I think you're projecting.
Okay, maybe.
Do you have something you'd like to tell us, Mike?
It's all coming from a conversation I had with our local Maine expert, Scott, in the office the other day. So
here's what I don't think.
When he gave me the middle finger.
Longtime Mainers like, the invasion of Massachusettsans and New Yorkians, coming into the state.
New Yorkians.
Yep.
Okay. That makes them seem a lot less harmful.
They're from New York, Mike.
Yeah.
So I think that ultimately they don't particularly like it because it's kind of like, hey, we've been here forever. You guys are driving up prices all over the place. Stop knocking down the old homes and building the new ones. Like, I get that.
Yep.
But I think that there's just a very kind of stoic culture in Maine that's just kind of like, okay, don't like this one bit, but I'm going to be okay about it. Whereas in Massachusetts, it's, I'm going to give him the finger.
Well, that's the point here, is you don't give somebody the finger. You get yourself a license plate where the tree does it for you. It's kind of stoic.
I'm looking at it right now.
I don't see it either.
It looks more like an upside-down BlackBerry to me.
Fair enough.
Something like that. I want to talk about this piece from The Economist. It's titled China's Crazy Reverse Credit Cards, where the premise is you pay now and buy later. And I got to be honest, I didn't find this that crazy. So here's the premise of this. I'll quote from the piece just to make it easy. So customers putting down 10,000 yuan can receive an extra 2,000 yuan to spend in the store, and if they use the money within the year, it amounts to an annual, quote, interest rate of 20% paid in kind. So basically it's, hey, give us your money up front, and we will give you a discount on purchases over the year.
Mm-hmm.
Which is exactly what I do with my alcohol purchases. The place that I buy from on Cyber Monday, they do a 10% off unlimited gift cards, and I dutifully save my money over the course of the year so that on Cyber Monday, I can effectively buy all of my alcohol for the rest of the year at a 10% discount.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't find this that crazy. What they are talking about is, hey, the Chinese economy is kind of not great right now, and so if your business goes out of business, obviously you've lost that money. There's no small claims court in China to deal with this. And
regulators are having to pop out of the woodwork to say, hey, look, if you go and reorganize your company under a separate name, this doesn't really work. I can see how this permeating society could become problematic in the same way of like bank failures.
I guess here's the other thing I'll say. How many, raise your hand, not if you're driving, but if you're driving, raise a mental hand. How many of you have ever received a gift card?
Everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
What do you think you're doing when you buy a gift card for someone? You're giving a company money up front
100%.
And saying, I'll buy something later. And half the time, the person you give the card to is like, oh, thanks. And it goes in a drawer. And 5 years later, they pull it out. And they're like, oh, I should spend this. And then they read the fine print and they can't anymore.
The point they are making, though, is I think the percentage of purchases that are done under this arrangement compared to the United States system, where much more of it is done via the traditional credit card, and that is just a difference in society, and also why some of the things that the Chinese government is trying to push right now, such as extending credit limits to borrowers, isn't really working in the way that it would in the United States, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
It's an interesting difference to me.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. I see us doing a lot of this in the U.S. too.
Yep.
Or, okay, great, I bought this on my credit card. Now I can't pay my credit card. Which system's better? I don't know.
Depends what your goal is.
Let's take a quick break for the entire rest of the day. Tomorrow is Tuesday, and we'll do a show then.